And I know I'm saying this for the first time. It may be kind of complicated, but what this means is it totally fits into the whole idea of the degeneration and the de-evolution of American health with a ton of processed foods that we take in. These are non-foods. So they come into our bodies valiantly try to break them down, but it fails because these are non-foods. The body never saw anything like it, but the body expends all this enzyme energy and enzyme potential in attempting to break down these non-foods, and this serves as a detriment to the metabolic side of the whole picture, which is involved in keeping our normal life functions moving at an optimum level. Dr. Royal Lee, one of the most famous nutritionists of all time, explained how an enzyme was a functioning mechanism, not a chemical. An enzyme itself is a living principle. And by this he means that enzymes, even though they are chemical molecules, many people think that they are proteins. They are protein molecules who perform a specific function. What you have to remember is that they don't exist in isolation. So if you just have the presence of an enzyme, that does not necessarily mean that you have enzyme activity. Enzymes require very specific pH, very specific conditions. They require cofactors like minerals and vitamins in order so that they'll operate. And this is why people think, oh, vitamins, if I take vitamins, I'll be fine. Well, if you take vitamins in isolation and leave out the enzymes and leave out the minerals, that'll only be one leg of the three-legged stool. All three of these characteristics work together in order for complete enzymatic activity. Vitamins, minerals, and enzymes, they must work together. The other thing about enzymes is, let's look at this shoelace here. This is a brand new shoelace. Now, an enzyme must have a specific shape in order to operate, period. So how is the enzyme going to be held in this specific shape? Let us envision little tiny Velcro bonds that will hold this enzyme into this specific weird configuration. Now, only in this shape will the enzyme work. The enzyme must go into a certain situation in a cell in this exact configuration, and it must hold that configuration in order for enzymatic activity to happen. What happens in the standard American diet, our modern diet, is that enzymes are denatured. Now, we've heard that word denatured. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means for so many reasons, the little Velcro bonds that hold this enzyme in this specific configuration are broken. And what happens then? The enzyme unravels and it becomes what? Just another protein. But it's a weird protein. And what do weird proteins or foreign proteins cause in our bodies? Chronic inflammatory conditions. So it's a lock and key type of situation. They must be held in a specific shape. So the denaturing of enzymes, we're talking about that. Let's ask ourselves, what are some of the things that denature enzymes? One of the first things that denatures enzymes is heating. Heating and cooking above 118 degrees Fahrenheit denatures enzymes. Now, many of our foods are cooked above boiling point, which, as we know, is 212. Yes, so by the time they get to that temperature, the enzymes are really denatured. So this is why if you take a boiled potato and you plant it in the ground, it won't sprout, because the enzymes have been denatured. Drugs denature enzymes. Alcohol, fluoride in fluoridated water denatures enzymes. That's a whole subject for a whole another hour's presentation. Free radicals. Free radicals, this is one of the problems with free radicals, that they denature enzymes. Food processing, the canning industry, all these processes of making food last a long time on the shelf, these processes denature the enzymes in the foods. And now the newest ones that we're talking about, irradiation. There's so much press on irradiation today. One big problem with that is it turns a food into a non-food for the purpose of what? Making our diets more nutritious? No. The answer is, the purpose is shelf life, to increase shelf life. And the same thing goes for genetic engineering. A lot of press about genetic engineering. These are methods of food processing whose primary goal is to make foods have a higher profitability, not to add nutrition to them. Now, going back historically, I asked myself, well, how did all this get started in the first place? Why is the focus of foods money and profit? Why is not the focus of foods and nutrition our health? How did all that come about? Well, it all came about in the 1900s. And I kind of started around 1912. There was a guy, his name was Harvey Wiley, MD, and he was the head of the first, kind of like the forerunner to the modern FDA. It was called the Bureau of Chemistry. And Harvey Wiley had this wacky idea that the American people should have a right to unadulterated, pure foods. And Harvey Wiley said, white sugar and white flour, these are non-foods. White flour at that time is just beginning to have bleaches added to it. And the bleach, what was the purpose of the bleach? Supposedly to kill the bugs, but in actuality, the bleach was real cheap white powder. It added to the weight of the flour, so it's cheaper. Same with white sugar. White sugar is a non-food. The food value, which is the enzymes, the vitamins, and minerals, have been removed by the milling process. Culturally, we are culturally conditioned to think that white sugar is preferable to brown sugar. We are culturally conditioned to think that white croissants, white bread, is superior to whole grain bread. It's a non-food. These are allergens. These cause disease. And Harvey Wiley knew this a long time ago. In fact, Harvey Wiley, in 1912, had a lawsuit against Coca-Cola. He was trying to prevent Coca-Cola from transporting Coca-Cola across interstate lines. Why? Because it contained white sugar. Now, this is a long time ago. Could you imagine that happening today, somebody filing a lawsuit like that? And this was the head of what became the FDA. So, adulterated, devitalized food. Now, here's his book, The History of a Crime Against the Pure Food Act. You can still get this book. Here's a quote from it. No food product in our country would have any trace of benzoic acid, sulfuric acid, or sulfites or any alum or saccharin save for medical purposes. No soft drink would contain caffeine or theobromine. No bleached flour. Our foods and drugs would be without adulteration. The health of our people would be vastly improved, and especially the millers would devote themselves to promote happiness by whole ground, unbolted cereal flours and meals. Now, this is from 1912. What happened was, obviously, they could not allow a dangerous lunatic like this to be in charge of the public nutrition. So as soon as he came out with these lawsuits and these books, they got him out of there, and they replaced him with somebody more in the company line. And one of these early guys was Elmer Nelson, Dr. Elmer Nelson. Here's a quote from him. It is wholly unscientific to state that a well-fed body is more able to resist disease than a poorly fed body. My overall opinion is that there hasn't been enough experimentation to prove that dietary deficiencies make one susceptible to disease. And the food industry said, you're our boy, Elmer. And the FDA kind of developed from that time. Now, what else was happening during this time? Well, during the 19-teens, we're having, like a world war. So it was a major concern. One of the biggest problems on our mind was, how do we ship food to the boys fighting in Europe without the food spoiling, okay? So now we're right back into enzymes, because what they found out was the more scientific principles are employed to what? Remove the enzymes from the food, the longer the food will last when we ship it, in cans and in all the other processes that they used. This process developed into the modern grocery business. After the war was over, it developed into the modern grocery business. And foods are now designed to last what? From now on. Talking about specific enzymes in groups of foods, we all know that foods come in three types: fats, protein, carbohydrates. So there are three types of enzymes to break down each one of those groups. There are lipase for fats, protease for proteins, and amylases for starches or carbohydrates. And that's what digestion is, the process of breaking down food into its component parts. Now, some doctors say that, some nutritionists say that you don't need to take any kind of supplement whatsoever because your body has been designed to break down any food that you eat into its component parts. So it doesn't matter what you eat because you can digest foods. Well, that would be true if we had a normal diet. Now, what Dr. Howell said was a normal diet would be to eat an 80% natural food diet. And the definition of that, a natural food, would be the foods which contain within themselves all the enzymes necessary for complete breakdown with no metabolic residue left over. But unfortunately, we do not have an 80% natural food diet. We have the SAD. We have a SAD diet, the standard American diet. We have abnormal digestion, and this is why we are not breaking down our foods. We are the only animals in nature who subsist on an enzymeless diet. Now, the problem with undigested food is not just that it sits there in a lump in your gut and just takes up space. No, it's worse than that. Undigested foods are toxic. They are poison. Fats go rancid, proteins putrefy, and carbohydrates ferment. Now, these are just big words for rotting or poisoning.
Perhaps after hearing Dr. O'Shea's lecture, you'd still like more information on enzymes. Dr. O'Shea wrote the foreword to this valuable resource by author Tonita DeRay. If you're interested in superior health, vitality, overcoming illness, losing weight, and longevity, then this booklet is for you. To order, please contact the Prism Weight Loss Program corporate office at 1-800-755-1738. I'm sure that Dr. O'Shea's lecture and Tonita DeRay's booklet will convince you, because of the many benefits, to include enzymes in your daily diet right away. You'll find natural digestive enzymes at your local health food store. Dr. O'Shea's favorite is an enzyme formula called Digestamil. To order this product, call toll-free 800-572-1447. Tonita DeRay likes the Maximizer formula. It contains more than 20 different kinds of digestive enzymes to address the variety of foods we eat. To obtain more information or to order this product, please contact Our Garden of Kettle Falls, Washington by calling 1-800-800-1927. Or you can reach them by email. Their address is cs@ourgarden.com. They also have an informative website at www.ourgarden.com. I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson and learned many new things. Believe it or not, there's still more to learn about enzymes, and we're delighted that Dr. O'Shea will be back again next week. During the third week of the program, you'll discover that the reading material is a bit more confrontational than it has been. It's the best way to help you get to the bottom of some very important issues, namely, why you developed your old eating habits in the first place, and what shaped your attitudes about food. But week 3 will not just dig into these old issues. It will also encourage you to exchange your old negative habits and attitudes for new, healthier ones. The best way to eliminate a bad habit is to replace it with a good one. Let's take a quick peek at some of the subjects you'll look into this week. You'll be challenged to take an honest assessment of your old eating behaviors and their negative results. You'll examine your relationship with the scale. You'll be encouraged to start consciously caring for yourself and attending to your own needs. You'll evaluate your behavior over the past few weeks to determine if you've been engaged in secret eating. You'll be directed to make thoughtful, confident, honest eating choices. You'll commit anew to the entire transformation process, body, mind, and spirit. And finally, you'll be inspired to begin and maintain a regular exercise program.
When we first joined the first meeting, I thought, oh no, I can't eat flour, I can't eat sugar. I don't think I'll come back. But then I had friends there, and I couldn't not go because of them. So I thought, well, I'll do it for a week. And then a week led to a month, and a month led to 2 years, kind of. For me, it's been a good program. I did have trouble with getting rid of the scale. That was a real hard problem for me. We're supposed to get rid of the scale, but I could never get rid of it. I would push it back, but I had to know that it was attainable, that I could get on it. And that's what I would do. I wouldn't look at because you can't look at you're not supposed to weigh yourself. So I would get on the scale, but not look at the weight. And then I even went so far as to have my husband come and look at the weight, but don't say anything, but say something if I'm going the wrong way. And it kind of put a lot of pressure on him, but I got through it. And now anybody that struggles with the scale doesn't bother me. It's there, and I never want to look at it. Maybe once a month I'll get on it now. But it was, for the first, I think 12 weeks, it was real hard for me. The control that the scale had for me was it told me what I could do. And now when I look back at it, it was, no matter what the weight said, it gave me permission to eat that day. If I had lost weight, then I could eat. If I hadn't lost weight, I was mad that whatever I'd tried the day before didn't work, so I'm going to go ahead and eat anyway. It doesn't matter. It gave me permission to eat. Now the scale, I found out that this program, if you stick to the guidelines, there's no way you can't lose weight. I mean, that proved it to me. But if you stick to the guidelines, and I didn't believe that until I didn't get on the scale. And then after the 6 weeks, we could get on the scale, and I'd lost 25 pounds, and I thought, this does work. It has made me feel better about myself. I now know that everybody around me loved me, but I didn't think they did the other way. And I didn't think God loved me, and I know He does. And it's made me accept me. I just have a saying that I put on every book, each different session that we went through is, no food can taste as good as thin will feel. And with Prism, that's my guideline.
Testimonies such as the one we just heard from Marie Dorset are so inspiring and helpful. I'm sure you'll join me in my expression of gratitude to Marie for sharing. If you're in a support group, please use the remaining moments of your meeting to share victories and challenges from the past week. Brainstorm solutions to problems encountered by members of your group. And most importantly, be sure to encourage and pray for each other, because the journey is much easier when accompanied by supportive friends. If you're involved in our correspondence program, jot down some of your experiences over the past week and make a note of any questions you may have. In this way, you'll be fully